The Republic of Chad, a member of the multinational Joint Task Force against the terrorist group Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa Province ISWAP, has issued an April 22 ultimatum to reoccupy territories Chadian troops seized from Boko Haram because it will withdraw its forces from those locations by that date.
Well, the president of Chad, Idris Deby, has warned the two countries that his forces would move out of the bases seized from the jihadists, regardless of whether their armed forces moved in or not. Troops deployed to fight jihadists in the Lake Chad region and the Sahel will no longer take part in military operations outside national borders.
Meanwhile, our sister outfit this day learned that there are concerns among residents and political leaders in Borno State following the influx of displaced Boko Haram insurgents and members of the Islamic State of West Africa, ISWAP, into the state after they were attacked in Chad and chased away by the Chadian troops. Some of the residents confirmed to this day that the insurgents who were displaced by the Chadian soldiers, led by their president, Idris Deby, from islands in the Lake Chad, have taken positions in part of northern Borno from where they were earlier pushed back by the Nigerian soldiers.
So joining us now via WebEx, Makurdi, Benue State, is Terrence, a field researcher with Global Amnesty Watch, an international human rights monitoring organization based in Geneva, covering crises in more than 16 nations. Kuanum is a security expert who have monitored vividly crises in the northeast and north-central zones of Nigeria. It's a pleasure to talk to you, Terrence. At this time, we're having a lockdown. I just want you to make sense of what is happening in Borno State. It is, like the Americans will say, a double whammy. The Boko Haram troops coming back into Nigeria after the defeat by the Chadian soldiers. Nigerian soldiers still having their own challenges around there. But despite the double whammy, the people suffer the most. The people are crying like they cried to our sister station this day. What do you say about all of this?
Thanks for having me. The situation that took place in Chad never happened in Nigeria. The operation that was led by the president of Chad took place in the Lak province in Boma Peninsula, in Chad, which is bordering Nigeria, Niger, and Cameroon. If you could recall, the rebels that he came to attack in the Boma province are rebels that have come together to take over power from him. He's been on that seat for 30 years, and these rebels, by last year, January 2019, had fought and they were almost in Jamena. It was of the French troops that they were able to push them back. And recently, in March, you also recall that in the same Lak province, these rebels were able to kill 92 soldiers of the Chadian government. And I think they felt that that kind of casualty they have received from the rebels, it was obvious they were going to come back again to take over power from the president. And that was why he led that operation to their base within the Lake Chad province so that he will be able to clear them. And even on the press conference that he had on the 2nd of April, he was only calling on the neighboring countries to be aware that remnants of rebels have run, and they should bring out their armed forces to be able to arrest them so that they won't be able to unite, because he had already known the consequences of these insurgents moving across borders. Because what he is facing today was as a result of the 2016 division of the Boko Haram, where Abu Musab and Mama Nu moved over to the Lake Chad basin in Chad and were able to put the rebels together to place their allegiance to ISIS, which turned into ISWAP. And that is the most dangerous terrorist group that we have today. And they have been on his neck for 4 years. So calling on neighboring nations to be able to curtail the remnants of rebels that ran into their countries was an ideal thing to do so that they won't be able to recruit and pledge allegiance to another terrorist group and start tormenting other West African countries. So that took place in Chad was heroic, but it wasn't on the Nigerian soil, and people are trying to let us believe. So we want to create that, correct that.
Okay, Terrence, if you can hear me, I saw your article, and a lot of people have put holes in your article that you are trying to narrow this to an internal crisis. I mean, rebel takeovers in Chad has been since the time of President Habre. Chad has never been a settled ground. It's always been rebel trying to take over here and there. A lot of people say you're trying to meet. Hang on a minute, Terrence. A lot of people are saying you're trying to mitigate the issues. And what are the issues? The fact that the Chadian soldiers came, to dislodge this Boko Haram sect, got a big cache of weapons. There were videos of Nigerian troops hailing them and saying these are soldiers that they were going. You are also mitigating the fact that Abubakar Shekau, that's so quick to abuse everybody in Nigeria, was begging the Chadian people and telling the soldiers to still stand strong, that if Allah wills, they will leave. Abubakar Shekau was put down. He couldn't talk any longer. A lot of people say you are mitigating that fact. In that article, you are trying to make it seem it's just an internal Chadian issue.
Okay, let me bring you into the picture.
Thank you, sir.
Discussing about was the Islamic group of Greater Sahara. They were not as sophisticated as the ISWAP. And two, the insurgents that are disturbing the West African sub-region, 80% of them are Chadians. We all know about that. Now, the shocking invasion in their territories control that they had was a big blow for all terrorists around the West African sub-region. That was what happened. What my article was trying to declare was that we have people who don't want to ever see anything good in what the military have been doing in the war against insurgents. Now, somebody did something in this country that was heroic, and then you try to give an impression as if that happened on the Nigerian soil. It never happened on the Nigerian soil. It happened in Chad. What happened in Chad was good. We have done our bit. It is even the bit that we have done in this country that has escalated over to Chad. Now, if they have been able to repair them, and remnants has come into our country, and then the president is calling on us to be aware that these people have also run into our country, we should sit up, I think it shouldn't be an issue that we would have politicized it. We have rather come together to make sure that we tame the remnants that have come into our country and control the situation. So it was all about trying to make sure that we don't down, because all we do is to try to mitigate the morale of our own troops that want to achieve where we are today. We don't appreciate them at all. So we were just trying to call on people to know that the narrative that is being said by some of our own people here, whether by commission or omission, was not correct. What happened was in Chad, which was great, a great feat achieved. If such feats were achieved also in Cameroon and in Niger, I think this would have gone a long way in putting this to an end, because most of our insurgents are always running across the border when we deplete them so low.
Well, we do appreciate what our military men, are doing in keeping us safe and, maintaining that integrity for us as a country, as a sovereign country. But let me ask you, because the response of the defense headquarters has been in that direction to say Chad is trying to take the glory for Nigeria's efforts in the fight against Boko Haram. They also say that there is no territory occupied by foreign troops. But we saw the governor of Borno State visit Mr. President. And when he spoke to newsmen, he says there will be repercussions for Nigeria if Nigeria is not proactive from the onslaughts Chad is carrying out. So it might not be on Nigerian territory, but there might be repercussions if these insurgents are not looking for safe haven. But there's also a 22nd April deadline for the withdrawal of troops from some territories by Chad, and that ultimatum has gone out to Nigeria and Niger. What are the consequences of this threat by Chad on the fight against Boko Haram and, of course, on the multinational joint task force?
Yeah, if we look at the National Joint Task Force, whose headquarters is in Niger Republic and commanded by the general of the Nigerian Army, Lucky Irabo. If we look at the composition of this, how many troops are even in the multinational joint task force? You know, they're just trying to politicize this crisis. And that is why have relocated himself to the border to make sure, because in an insurgency, this border is politicized and we're not careful, that is where the whole will come. And then whatever you have suffered over the years will be renewed. We're happy that he has seen the sign and he has relocated to the northeast. The Chadian threat does not even apply to the issues of multinational joint task force. Like I have told you, what this man is fighting is not the Boko Haram insurgents, it's Iswap. He has them in his territory. It was our own Abu Musab and Mama Nu that went and put them together and placed their allegiance to ISIS. And me and you know how sophisticated ISIS is. He has been with them. This man is on their seat for 30 years. And these rebels have vowed that they must take over the office from him. They made attempts last year, if you could recall, after the French government was able to push the rebels back, he came out to tell us that he has been able to capture 250 of them, 4 leaders of them, and destroy over 400 people. So it's a challenge that he had. It is not a new challenge. I'm surprised that people did not notice when the rebels were almost taking over power from him. I know, and our people are to bring sentiments into issues of security, which is very, very wrong. Because this thing had nothing to do with Nigeria. It had nothing to do with Niger. It had nothing to do with Benin Republic. It had nothing to do with any West African nation.
Political sentiments aside, we do know that Nigerians and Chadians, about 169,000 of them, according to the Norwegian Refugee Council, have been affected by the ongoing crisis in these areas. So what does this mean for civilian and local communities who have had to deal with the escalation of violence? We're going to go on a quick break now, and when we come back, you will answer this question. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still joined via WebEx in Makurdi by Mr. Terrence Kuanum, a field researcher with Global Amnesty Watch and International Human Rights Monitoring Organization based in Geneva. Now, I was asking before the break, because you have reiterated that everything that has happened is just political sentiments. But I want to talk about the civilians who have had to live through this escalation of violence. According to the Norwegian Council of Refugees, about 169,000 people have been displaced from their homes. So what does this mean for them? There are Nigerians who fall under these numbers, so it affects our nation whether we like it or not. So what does this mean for them?
Yeah, you know, if you look at the Lake Chad province at the moment, it is we have few civilians operating within that province because of the so many number of years that have been this territory has been occupied by these rebels. The anchor was saying there that the rebel has been there for a very long time. They have a long history. So civilians in those places are always aware of those activities. And also governments also know that these people are always going to be displaced. So there are provisions for them both within the government at the borders, the Nigeria, the Cameroon, and the Niger, and they know exactly how they are handling them. The National Human Rights Commission on Refugees has always been there also to help. But like you know, these are issues we have to think as a people and unite together to end them as a sub-region. Because this is what started like a joke as united resistant forces. We had our own Boko Haram this side, and then all of a sudden, this thing has metamorphosed into pledging allegiance to international terrorist group, brought into in with a lot of sophisticated weapons and XYZ. So I feel that as a people, when there is a success achieved in any of these countries, shouldn't be to talk other nations and XYZ. Rather, we need to be united together so that these forces morale will be boosted, that we are standing with them and we can be able to defeat them headlong. We actually applaud the courage of David to have moved himself to the rebels camp with the troops to be able to carry that operation. But that doesn't mean that into it was a success for the entire West African sub-region, because what we have on our hand is so huge, from Nigeria to Chad to Niger, Burkina Faso to Mali. It's a very huge, enormous crisis that we have on our hand, where a good portion of our territories are into rebels and terrorists. So I think we should be united. And like I have always said, that the civilians have a big role to play. Most of these rebels are with us in our societies, and we inform the security agents and government who will not be able to know that they are with us. Because these IDP camps that we are talking about, any day you open an IDP camp that is open for visitors, it is still these rebels and terrorists that come to see their wives. Their wives and families are in the IDP camps, and they come there. So the role of the civil society and civil, it is a very key role to play for us to be able to tame them, because somebody cannot destroy your community, cannot destroy your society, what has affected you psychologically, physically, and everything comes to you.
Okay, Terrence.
To arrest.
Okay, Terrence, I'd like to jump in here with a quick question. And I just want to pick some holes more in your article you wrote. Terrence, at first, the operation is called Operation Revenge of Bohoma. Terrence, I'm saying this, I pledge true loyalty not to the Nigerian army and Nigerian state. I'm a Nigerian. The operation is called Operation Revenge of Bohoma. So your analogy about it being an internal crisis in Chad doesn't hold water, because it was in revenge of the killings of the 92 soldiers in the barracks in Bohoma. Secondly, if you say, no, Chad is fighting the internal crisis, I'm looking at the welfare of our troops. A certain Major General Adeniyi spoke up about the fact that we do not have enough armory and machinery, and he was taken out of his position. Some foreign media reported 70 troops were killed. Nigerian, defense headquarters and mills are reporting 40 troops that were killed. If Chad can react this way, mark my words, Operation Revenge of Bohoma. 92 troops were killed. They got out 1,000 Boko Haram troops. And in our own case, 40 were killed. Major General Adeniyi spoke up, and he was called the bad guy, and he was put out of his position. Terrence, help me make sense of all of this. I don't understand it. I don't.
Okay, yeah, it's very clear to understand. Just that I think you are being emotional. Yeah, yes, this is Operation Revenge of Bohoma, because when the rebels want to attack and take power, the first attack is the state actors that are armed, and that was why they went to Bohoma. Now, if you are able to tame them down, your way to N'Djamena will be easier for you. And that was what they did. That the government was able to regroup the forces and go back for things is what we are applauding. Yes, we lost 40-something soldiers too in our own territory. Of any staff have made some changes, leadership of the command, and he has also relocated to the northeast. And he has given us his word that if this doesn't end, he's not going to come back to Abuja. We are watching, and we wish him success for what he's going to do. So it means that both nations are not taking lightly with the death of their troops, which is commendable. And so I don't think we need to be emotional about the whole thing. Yes, they went for a revenge. But is it that we have not done an operation? Maybe they will also name our own operation. But they are in the planning stage, and they are there to secure our territory. I don't think about it the way you are, but we are going to get there. But if we follow the history of what happened in Chad, the United forces are just trying to take over power from them, and they have made it clear several times. They are going to take over power, and they are going to unite all the forces, and they are going to build a new Chad. 30 years, they've had enough of it.
All right. While we salute the efforts and the gallantry of our troops, we must also recognize that the Chadian army is a force to reckon with on the region and even in the Sahel. So I have two quick questions for you, because I mentioned earlier the threats by the Chadian authorities to pull out from any joint efforts going forward, and that includes the multinational joint task force. I want you to be clear on what you said. Are you saying that there will be no consequences should Chad pull out of the multinational joint task force? And secondly, this blowing hot and cold by the Chadian authorities, because they've also threatened to pull out from the G5 Sahel, which is tackling insurgents in the Sahel region. Do you think that this is undue pressure tactics by President Idris Deby?
No, like I told you earlier, the man is fighting for the survival of his office. He knows the gravity of forces is up against. He needs the synergy of nations within the sub-region come in and assist him. He feels that if they synergize against this rebel, there won't be a threat to his person, to the sub-region again. He doesn't need to call the French intervention at this time again. So I think he has put in enough pressure on these people. And already our Chief of Army Staff, we all know, is in the Northeast, where the defense chiefs in the Cameroon are also at their border. So I think the borders are being fortified within the sub-region so that these forces will not, because what the strategy they've been using over time is because of the porous nature of borders that we have within the sub-region. If the forces are depleted, if the rebels are depleted in Nigeria, they cross over to Niger, Chad, and the Cameroon. If they are depleted in this country, they move to this side. And you know that at every point, the insurgents cross over the border and they come back. They come back more audacious and with more force against our own military. And it happens the other side too. So I think the pressure he has given within the sub-region is a good omen also for the other countries to sit up. But pulling out of the multinational joint front like the G5 is not just, it cannot just come from a statement by the president. The political leadership of the sub-region will need to sit and look into the issues that he's going to bring forward before those decisions can be taken. So we cannot hear from a president and say he wants to withdraw from the troops. I think there were some agreements that that these nations went into, and I think they kept faithfully to it. I am aware that the multinational joint task force, completely 90% of it is being funded and armed by Nigeria. So I think Nigeria has a big stake in what is happening within the sub-region, to the end of insurgency within it. So I think the statement from the president to withdraw is not a trade yet until the political leadership.
Okay, thank you very much, Terrence Kuanum, for being on the show this morning and sharing your thoughts on the Boko Haram insurgency, especially concerning new developments by Chad.